Thank you for joining us. My name is Kent Hovind. I was a high school science teacher for 15 years and earned my doctorate in education. I've been very concerned about education and particularly the subject of the teaching of evolution and creation in our public schools. It's my great honor in the last 10 years to be an evangelist speaking on the subject of creation and evolution and getting into many hundreds of public schools and sharing the most important topic of origins with the kids there in public schools. What I'd like to do in this tape is cover two subjects. Number one, we're going to talk about what can be done, what can teachers do in a public school? What does the law say? You know, what's right and what's wrong? And then secondly, the second half of this tape will be an actual presentation with me speaking to about 700 students in a public school. And many teachers will use this tape to show to their class the evidence for creation and the evidence against evolution, because I try to avoid referring to God or the Bible, though there's no reason that you can't. I just purposely don't when I go speak in public schools. I'd like to say, first of all, that most of the public school teachers that I know are sincere, dedicated, professional people. They are oftentimes very intelligent and very godly people who want to do right. My brother is a 28-year veteran teaching in public schools. My mom taught for 20 years and retired from teaching public schools. Many simply do not know that they can teach creation science. For some reason, people think that you can't talk about creation or the Bible in the public schools, and I'd like to show you what the law says and simply put that thought to rest. So what does the law say? What can we teach anyway? Well, to give you a little history, in the 1800s, when the public school system began, in the early 1800s, they used the Bible as a curriculum book. It was part of the classroom, and teachers were taught, students were taught straight from the Bible. They were taught about the Noah and the flood and the whole story of creation. There was no problem at all. As the public school system began to grow and spread around the country, people began to include the evolution teaching, particularly about the mid-1860s or 70s, when Darwin's book started to become popular. Teachers began to include some of this in their curriculum. Then in the early 1920s, some states passed laws requiring schools to not teach evolution. The most famous, of course, is the Scopes monkey trial. The world's most famous court trial took place in Dayton, Tennessee in 1925. This is the actual transcript of the trial right here. What happened, Tennessee had passed a law that says you cannot teach evolution. And there's a long story about that trial, and especially about the books that have been written or the movie that was done since then called Inherit the Wind, which is an absolute perversion of what really happened. And I would recommend you actually read the court transcript yourself, read it word for word, and then as you watch the movie, you'll see thousands of changes that were made purposely to make the Christians and the Bible-believing people or the creationists look dumb. And that's not at all what happened there in Dayton, Tennessee, that hot summer in 1925. So there's information you can get from Bryan College, which was started in honor of William Jennings Bryan, who was the man who defended the teaching of creation and the exclusion of evolution in that trial. You could read what Mr. Bryan had to say on the subject. You can get the entire court case from Bryan College, or you can get good information from George Serrell, who has written quite an expose of the errors in the video and the movie Inherit the Wind. Please do not show that to your students, or if you do, give them some equal time by showing creationist information. You certainly can do that. But in 1925, the evolutionists lost the case. They lost that day. Scopes, the teacher who claimed he taught evolution, though he didn't know if he ever did or not, Scopes was fined $100. Later the fine was overturned on a technicality, but the case was never overturned. It remained against the law to teach evolution in many states until 1968. The last laws banning the teaching of evolution were overturned in 1968. And now it's okay to teach evolution. It's always been okay to teach creation. There's never been a law against it. There are numerous impact articles put out by the Institute for Creation Research. They put these out there 10 cents a piece, and they're up to 350 something now. So you could get all the back issues for $35. This goes through all the different things about creation, evolution, and quite a few of these impact articles deal just with the topic of teaching creation in public schools. Might be very helpful information to you to show you that you can teach creation science in your public school. Even the evolutionists admit this. It's never been against the law to teach creation. Stephen Jay Gould, raving evolutionist, said, "No statute exists in any state to bar instruction in creation science. It could be taught before and it can be taught now." So he knows it can be taught. Evolutionary biologist Michael Zimmerman said, "The Supreme Court ruling did not in any way outlaw the teaching of creation science in public school classrooms. Quite simply, it ruled that in the form taken by the Louisiana law, it is unconstitutional to demand equal time for this particular subject. Creation science can still be brought into science classrooms if and when teachers and administrators feel that it is appropriate. Numerous surveys have shown that teachers and administrators favor just this route. And in fact, creation science is being taught in science courses throughout the country. So don't let somebody tell you you cannot talk about creation in the classroom. Yes, you certainly can. Eugenia Scott, the president of the National Center for Science Education, who I debated one time on the radio, kind of a one-sided debate. I got about 8 minutes and she got about 45 minutes. But Eugenia Scott, who's their whole organization, the National Center for Science Education, they exist to stop people from teaching creation in the classrooms. They put out pamphlets all the time, sending them to public schools every place. They're very well funded. And they say, you know, don't teach creation in the classrooms and only teach evolution in the classrooms. And there's really a lot of misinformation coming out, and teachers are just plain confused about what to do. But Eugenia Scott said, the Supreme Court decision says only that the Louisiana law violates the constitutional separation of church and state. It does not say that no one can teach scientific creation. And unfortunately, many individual teachers do. Some school districts even require equal time for creation and evolution. William Provine, quite a strong believer in the evolution theory, said, teachers and school boards in public schools are already free under the Constitution of the USA to teach about supernatural origins if they wish in their science classes. Laws can be passed in most countries of the world requiring discussion of supernatural origins in science classes and still satisfy national legal requirements. He continued and said, I have a suggestion for evolutionists. Include discussion of supernatural origins in your classes and promote discussion of them in public and other schools. Come off your high horse about having only evolution taught in science classes. The exclusionism you promote is painfully self-serving and smacks of elitism. Why are you afraid of confronting the supernatural creationism believed by the majority of persons in the USA and perhaps worldwide? Shouldn't students be encouraged to express their beliefs about origins in a class discussing origins by evolution? Well, yay, William, I think that's good. I think, yes, students should be taught both sides of this vital issue. Ultimately, there are only two options. Either there is a creator or there isn't. And it's perfectly fine to teach the kids there is a creator, or the teacher could say, I believe there is a creator. It's perfectly fine to do that. You may want to get Impact article number 196, which explains some of the laws about teaching creation science in a public school. It's always been perfectly fine. The ACLU seems to have been very instrumental in spreading some false information or misleading information, trying to let teachers think they cannot talk about creation in the classroom. I think what typically happens is the ACLU will threaten a lawsuit if some teacher teaches creation. Now, they would lose the lawsuit, but that doesn't matter. The fact that they threatened a lawsuit makes the average school board run and hide and say, well, let's not talk about the Bible or talk about creation because we can't afford to defend ourselves against this lawsuit. Even though the ACLU would lose, they will threaten the suit and sometimes even bring suit just so that the harassment factor will cause teachers to stop teaching creation. And that is most unfortunate, but happens, I'm afraid, all the time. Teachers are not allowed to convert the students or try to get the students to become a Baptist or Catholic or Buddhist or something like that, but they certainly can talk about creation in the classroom. You may want to get information from Elizabeth Ridenour, the National Council for Bible Curriculum in Public Schools from North Carolina. They've done a tremendous job on putting out information about how you can get a Bible class started in your public school. It's always been perfectly fine. You may want to get the book by Dwayne Gish, Teaching Creation Science in Public Schools, showing how that it is perfectly fine. You might want to get information from the Gablers. The Gablers in Longview, Texas have spent a lifetime, for the last 40 years, they've been putting out information on good public school textbooks. And what does the law actually say? They review all the textbooks that come out and help people select good books. For instance, the Gablers have said states can legally require teachers to discuss evolution in science class. They cannot require them to discuss creation. Teachers may discuss creation in science classes if they wish. So what's happened is some people, I think well-meaning people, have tried to go into states' legislatures and say, I demand creation be taught. Well, the Supreme Court has consistently ruled against that, but the Supreme Court says, look, you can teach it if you want, but we cannot make anybody teach it. We cannot demand that it be taught. Courts allow states to require discussing scientific weaknesses in evolution, but not requiring discussing evidence for creation. Let's just look at some of the actual Supreme Court cases and see what they've said. In 1963, Supreme Court said, it certainly may be said the Bible is worthy of study for its literary and historic qualities. Nothing we have said here indicates that such study of the Bible or of religion, when presented objectively as part of a secular program of education, may be affected consistently with the First Amendment. In 1980, the Supreme Court said, the Bible may constitutionally be used in an appropriate study of history, civilization, ethics, comparative religion, or the like. It's perfectly fine to include creation in the classroom, even teach the Bible in the classroom. Eighth Circuit Court ruled in 1980 it's okay to teach the Bible in a public school. In 1987, the Supreme Court ruled again. They said teaching a variety of scientific theories about the origins of mankind to school children might be done with the clear secular intent of enhancing the effectiveness of science instruction. They said teachers already possess the flexibility to present a variety of scientific theories about the origins of humankind and are free to teach any and all facets of the subject. California State Board of Education ruled in their policy on teaching natural science. They said discussions of any scientific fact, hypothesis, or theory related to the origins of the universe are appropriate to the science curriculum. If you want to keep up on what's going on in education and curriculum, you may want to get a hold of Fred B001 at spectra.net and say, put me on the loop, and you'll get all sorts of emails keeping you up to date on what's happening with education. You may also want to get the video Crisis in the Classroom by Phyllis Schlafly. Tremendous video showing what's happening in our public school classrooms and what the kids are being taught. The average teacher has to rely on things in the textbooks. And for many years, it's been a hobby of mine to collect public school textbooks. I have hundreds of them. My wife says too many. But as I review these textbooks, it's sad to see the things that are taught in these textbooks, things that just simply are not true. But the average teacher doesn't have time, when they've got all these lessons to prepare, to know, they don't have time to study them all to find out which books are good. I mean, which ones should I use for my kids? Even people on the textbook selection committee often do not know, how do I tell which books are good? What do I do anyway? Well, you might want to get the Impact article number 278 from the Institute for Creation Research, icr.org, where they rated the textbooks in 1991. They took all the textbooks that are available for biology, for instance, and rated them based upon the percentage of text devoted to evolution. How strongly is evolution pushed in this book? And I think you'll find they range all the way from not much to a whole lot in the textbooks. For instance, Merrill Science put out biology book called An Everyday Experience. It only had 2.9% of the book devoted to evolutionary teaching. And even that was isolated into a few single places where it would be easy to simply skip those sections or cut the pages out. I don't know why that thought never occurs to people, but man, if your school bought the book, you have the authority to cut the pages out if you don't want your kids taught that information. Another option is to get stickers in the front of the book that warn the kids about information that's not true. And the school districts are free to teach creation if they want. They're free to exclude evolution. The state can require them to discuss evolution, but they certainly cannot require them to believe in evolution. You'll find the books range from 2.9% in teaching of evolution all the way up to 15%, where they promote the evolution theory like it's some kind of fact of science. You know, don't you dare question this. I would recommend you do two things. If you're on the textbook selection committee, or if you're going to select books for your school, pick the book that's the least poisonous, the one with the least amount of evolution in it, and then do two things. Write to the other publishers and tell them why you didn't pick their book. If you wrote to HBJ, Harcourt Brace Jovanovich, and said, we did not pick your book this year because you had, too much evolution or false information. Textbooks are very good at using false information to push the evolution theory, and that simply isn't fair, of course isn't right, and is actually illegal in many states. But they don't have any other evidence for their theory, so they use false information, things that have been proven wrong years ago, as supposed evidence for their theory. For instance, textbooks will often teach that the human embryo has gill slits, which was proven wrong in 1874, but is still in textbooks today. Every biology textbook that I'm aware of, and I have hundreds of them, teaches that the human embryo has gill slits, and that is evidence that we went through a fish stage in our development. Proven wrong at the Court of Jena in 1874. I don't know why that's still in the textbooks. That simply should be taken out. They also teach that there are vestigial organs, like the human has a vestigial tailbone or something. That's not true at all. There are no vestigial organs, like an appendix. That's part of your immune system. So the textbooks teach things to the kids that just simply are not true. That doesn't mean all the teachers are teaching these things, but the textbooks certainly contain that information. We've got a whole videotape 2 hours long on this very topic, lies in the textbooks. We also have produced a little booklet called Are You Being Brainwashed by Your Public School Science Textbook? That might give students or teachers some helpful information to know what is not true. I was in a debate one time with a professor who believed in evolution, and I showed some of the things that are not true in the textbooks. I went for about an hour. He got up and he said, now folks, Mr. Hovind is right. These things are not true. But I'd like to ask him a question. What would he replace them with? I thought, wait a minute, I have to find a replacement for evidence for his theory? I would say if you don't have any evidence for your theory, maybe you need to get a new theory. I don't know if that thought ever occurred to him before or not, but I sure suggested it to him. It's understandable that people want kids to believe a particular way. I mean, I try to convert people to believe what I believe, and I think probably everybody in the world does that. But there are some people who are very dedicated to teaching evolution, and they want to make sure kids believe this theory. One of the worst of the textbook publishers that I've seen in all my study on this topic is the BSCS series. Boy, if they get involved in it, you can count on it. It'll be loaded with evolution. They were one of the first groups, one of the government-funded groups to publish textbooks in 1960, 61, 62, 63, during that era. Many books began to come out really pushing evolution strongly. And there's lots of reasons behind why that happened. If you give me a call, we can go into a long discussion sometime on that. But there's an alternative. If a teacher says, well, what book should I get? Well, I recommend you get the least poisonous. And that may change from year to year. It doesn't mean it's always going to be the Merrill Science. They may put a whole bunch in their books next time. You might want to get hold of the Gablers. They would be helpful on discussing that. You might want to just get a supplemental book like this one, Of Pandas and People. This little book is an excellent biology book, but it covers biology from an intelligent design perspective instead of millions of years of evolution. And that may be something you could use in your classroom, where it doesn't talk about God or the Bible. It just says, hey, there must have been a designer, an intelligent designer. I think what's in these books is so important, because what the kids read in a book, of course, especially at junior high, high school level, they're going to think, well, it's in the book, it must be true. Adolf Hitler said, let me control the textbooks, and I will control the state. Who selects the books you buy anyway? And how is this done? Well, textbook selection, basically, to simplify a kind of a complex process here, there are 50 states in America. 22 of those states have a state textbook selection committee. In the other states, the teacher can pick their own books, or the school district can pick their books. You know, there are no regulations. But in the 22 states that have a state textbook selection committee, there will be 12 or 15 or 20 people meet in the state capitol typically, and they will get a book from each of the publishers. The publishers will send a sample copy of their book. Sometimes they even send a representative and wine them and dine them and say, you know, please buy our books. They're trying to sell their books. Money's the bottom line. And these 12 publishers will send their books saying, please buy our book. Then the textbook selection committee will look over the 12 books or 10 or whatever it is, and they will pick out a few that they recommend. In Florida, for instance, where I live, the state textbook selection committee narrows it from 12 down to 5. Those 5 titles are sent to each of the local school districts, and the school district will select a committee of people. Usually the school board members will select somebody to represent them on the textbook selection committee. That committee will meet typically in January or February to look over the books that are available so that they can get them ordered and get them in time for September. The committee then will look over the 5 approved state books, and they will pick 1 or 2 that they approve for their county. And then those books will be purchased by the teacher and used for the next 6 years in class. 1 year they'll pick science, and next year they pick English or history. They rotate. Different districts have different ways they do it, but that's the general concept. And the atheists and evolutionists seem to have been really good at getting on the textbook selection committees to make sure evolution is taught. They know, of course, they can't hold a meeting and teach everybody evolution in a town meeting because nobody would show up to the meeting. So they have to present the evolution at the taxpayer's expense via the textbooks. And that's where teachers come in, and they can do something about it. You can select books that simply don't contain that information, or put a warning sticker in the front, or cut out the bad pages. I mean, your school bought the book. You can do with it as you please. So I'd recommend you maybe get on that committee. Some practical things you can do. And this has been done in many areas. Get the pages, get a book. Let's say you already paid $50 for the book. You don't want to throw the whole book away. So you get the book and find the places where false information is presented, like the gill slits, the tailbone being vestigial, the horse having 4 toes, every one of the so-called cavemen evidence for evolution, even the section about the geologic column and the layers being different ages. Absolutely not true. And I cover all that on our seminar videotape. You might want to get that seminar on lies in the textbooks. But you can go through your textbook, find the places where the information is not correct, and cut the page out. I'm sure you can get local volunteers in churches in your area that would be thrilled to come help do that. Cut out the false information. If you'd like, send me a sample copy of your book, and I will make a list and tell you what pages need to be removed. I have read through scores, if not hundreds and hundreds of these textbooks, and I can find these things very quickly. Or, an alternative to that, you could simply glue the pages together, the pages that contain false information. You could put a warning sticker in the front cover of your textbook. Alabama requires a warning sticker if books teach evolution, to warn the kids the difference between micro and macro evolution. You may want to get my little brainwashed book, which contains much information in there about lies in the textbooks, to show the students, hey kids, this is not true. This has been proven wrong a long time ago. Many states have laws that require textbooks to be accurate, and I think that's very reasonable. For instance, Florida Statute 233.09 says all instructional materials recommended by each council for use in their schools shall be, to the satisfaction of each council, accurate. Now the problem with the Florida law is that little phrase, to the satisfaction of each council. There's the problem. There are things in Florida textbooks that are absolutely not accurate. They're bold-faced lies, but the council said they were fine, so they're tolerated. They need to get the lawmakers that have some backbone to stand up and say, look, take that phrase out. Textbook should be accurate, period. Texas has a law that says instructional materials shall present the most factual information, and theories shall be clearly distinguished from facts and presented in an objective manner. Now, they're not in Texas textbooks, and I've got Texas textbook right here beside me. I've got quite a few of them. They are not presented objectively. Evolution is taught dogmatically, but the law says it's supposed to be. In Wisconsin, the administrative code says textbooks shall have factual accuracy. In Alabama, they have a sticker that says, this textbook discusses evolution, a controversial theory some scientists present as a scientific explanation for the origin of living things. No one was present when life first appeared on Earth. Therefore, any statements about life's origins should be considered as theory, not fact. Microevolution, it's got a whole section describing micro and macroevolution, which are very different, by the way. No connection whatsoever between the two. You might want to get one of the Alabama stickers and use it as a model to create something for your school textbooks, that you could warn the kids, hey, this information is not true. I think it's also important that students and teachers be aware of their legal rights on this topic. For instance, you might want to get this book, Students' Legal Rights, on your public school campus, showing how that students have the right to be exempt from any class that is teaching something contrary to their religion. If the parents go to the school and say, look, I don't want my kid taught evolution, I don't want them taught sex education or whatever, the schools have to abide by that. They have to say, okay, if you don't want the kid taught that, then we will take them out. And they have to provide alternative material, and they cannot punish the student for not being in the class. They can't test them on things where they weren't, when the student wasn't there. So I think that'd be a reasonable way to do it. Now, what's happening in our schools has me deeply concerned as I go speak in public schools very frequently, and honestly, I would like to help. I think it's important that we understand the law. What does the law say? The law says you can teach creation if you want. You don't have to, but you can if you want. Don't let anybody tell you you can't. There seems to be a lot of confusion on this topic, and it's unnecessary. I think we need to get back to teaching the basics, teach students, hey, it's okay, kids, you can teach creation. We can teach creation in class if we want. You can even read the Bible to them. Read the Bible story about the creation and say, students, what do you think? There's no problem with that whatsoever. Well, if I can be any help, please feel free to give me a call. Honestly, I'm concerned that many teachers do not know what they can and cannot do on this topic, and I would like to answer any questions I can or steer you to where you can get more information. The rest of this videotape now will contain an actual presentation that I'm doing at a public school. I speak in public schools frequently. If you'd like me to speak in your public school when I'm in your area, please look at my itinerary on my website, drdino.com, and find out when I'm going to be close to you there and schedule me to come speak in your public school. I don't know why there seems to be some schools that are afraid to have a creationist come in. There's no reason to be afraid. You certainly can. If I'm unable to come or schedule doesn't permit, I can certainly give you a list of other people who speak on creation. But I think it's essential that students get the information, that they see, hey, it's okay, I can learn about the Bible in my public school, I can learn about creation in my public school. So feel free to give us a call. We hope you enjoy the rest of this video. Well, thank you, boys and girls, for coming this morning. My name is Kent Hovind. I was a high school science teacher for 15 years, and now I travel all over and do seminars on creation, evolution, and dinosaurs. I like science. And we're going to talk about some science things here this morning. Now, this is not my wife. This is just a picture of her. We live in Pensacola, Florida. I've been there for 14 years, and I have 3 children, all married, and 2 grandkids. And we have about 30 people working in my ministry there called Creation Science Evangelism. And we do all sorts of activities on creation and evolution. Now, I like science. I collect science books. I just like science. And today, whenever you see this beep signal, I want you to raise both hands and put them back down as fast as you can. Ready, set, beep. Hands up, back down. Pretty slow, but that's okay. You'll get faster. Okay, I like science. Does anybody here know how to shoot a rubber band? Okay, sir, right there, come on up, and your wife next to you, come on up, both you two right there. Okay, hurry, let's go. What's your name, sir? Jamie. Jeremy? Jeremy. And is this your wife?
No.
Okay. Now, what's your name?
Jordan.
Jordan. Here you go. We have some brand new rubber bands. Jamie and Jordan. Pick one of those. Jeremy. Okay, Jeremy and Jordan, I want you to see how far you can shoot the rubber band. Let's go toward that corner over there where the drinking fountain is. Go ahead, ladies first. Oh, okay. Oh, about the same distance. Okay, girl in the red sweater, stand up there because they can see how far they went. Now watch this carefully because I happen to know the scientific way to shoot a rubber band. You ready to watch this? If you're real quiet, you can actually hear mine go. They go so fast. You ready? The scientific way to shoot a rubber band. Whoa. Now, you are thinking of a question, and the question has 5 words in it. The magic question is, how did you do that? Right now, you're probably thinking of a question, how did you do that anyway? Well, we're going to teach you guys when we're done, if you all sit there real quiet. Let's give them a big hand for practicing. We'll let you try it again in a minute. Thank you. Have a seat. I like science. I'm going to show you guys real quickly the scientific way to make a round airplane. See, moving air has less pressure. Oh, thank you, ma'am. You're a Gentile and a scholar. If I blow under this piece of paper, it will lift up. If I blow over the piece of paper, it will lift up. No, it'll lift up. Moving air has less pressure. That's why the top of an airplane wing is curved and the bottom is straight. Air moves over the top and actually sucks the airplane off the ground. It's called lift. So if I fold it over to make an airplane about an inch like this, and then I fold it over, and then you 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 fold it over and fold it over, and then you fold it over and fold it over. And you have an airplane. You don't think that's an airplane? Well, I'll show you in just a minute now. I taught science, you know, I like science. So we're going to take this airplane, get a small piece of adhesive bonding strip, tuck one side inside the other, and when you install the adhesive bonding strip, the sticky side goes down. That's very important. This is very serious. Now, if you add a small quantity of salivary extract to your phalanges, like this, and you throw it just like a football, you have an airplane. I told you it's an airplane. Now pay attention. All you do, throw it. Okay. Now, thank you. I like science, but science has a long history of teaching things that are wrong. And I want you guys to be good science students. And you need to understand, when you're studying science, the word science means knowledge, things that we know. But sometimes it's not things that we know, it's things that we think we know. And it turns out they are wrong. You know, for a long time, the scientists used to teach people things that are just simply not true. Now, a good science student learns to look at things and say, wait a minute, maybe this is true and maybe it's not true. Let's just examine the facts, okay? For instance, they used to teach the kids for a long time that all the planets go around the Earth. That was taught for a long time, and it's wrong. They used to teach the kids big rocks fall faster than little rocks. That was taught for 2,000 years in schools, and guess what? It's wrong. They used to teach the kids, if you're sick, you have bad blood. Take out your blood and you'll get better. Wrong. There were special places all over the country to get your blood taken out. You could tell where they were because they had a white pole with a red stripe around it. The barber was the bloodletter. And what they did was wrong, and that's how George Washington died. I like science, but I think they're teaching us a couple things today that are simply not true. For instance, most of the textbooks in school say the universe began 20 billion years ago with a Big Bang. I think that's one of the dumbest theories in the history of the world, but we're going to talk about it today. Anyway, textbook says 18 to 20 billion years ago there was a Big Bang. Okay, well, what exploded? Yeah. And then they say 4.6 billion years ago the Earth cooled down and it formed a hard rocky crust. Yes, boys and girls, the Earth's surface was hot and there were large pools of bubbling lava. Textbook says oceans formed as it rained on the rocks for millions of years. Oh yeah, this one says millions of years of torrential rains created great oceans. and swirling in the waters of the oceans is a bubbling broth of complex chemicals. It says progress from a complex chemical soup to a living organism is very slow. I guess it is. Doesn't even happen. That's how slow it is. This guy said the first self-replicating systems must have emerged in this organic soup. So according to some people's theory, 20 billion years ago there was a Big Bang, and I've got this information on the chart right here. 20 billion years ago there was a Big Bang. 4.6 billion years ago the earth cooled down. Then it rained on the rocks for millions of years and turned them into soup, and the soup came alive 3 billion years ago. And that first life form found somebody to marry. Oh, now there's a good trick. And something to eat, of course, and slowly evolved into everything we see today. So according to their theory, great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandpa was soup. Now, I happen to believe that's a pretty dumb theory, but hey, some people believe that. That's okay. You can believe what you want. So what we're going to do is talk about how science works today, because a good science student learns to examine that maybe what I'm being taught is simply not true. And you have to always keep that in mind and say, hold it, this just might not be the case. Okay, I think it's wrong. Adolf Hitler said, if you tell a lie long enough and loud enough and often enough, the people will believe it. And we've heard this for a long time, about billions of years ago, and I think it's wrong. I think they're actually wrong today about two things. I think they're wrong about the age of the earth. The earth is not billions of years old. And there's all kinds of ways to prove that scientifically. Hey, did you know the moon is going around the earth? How many knew that already? Okay, good. Did you know as the moon goes around the earth, it's gradually getting farther and farther away? We're slowly losing the moon. It's drifting off about 3 inches every year. No big deal, nothing to worry about. Plus, nothing you can do about it anyway. But the moon is getting farther from the earth every year. Now, kids, this is going to be complicated, so listen carefully. The moon gets farther from the earth every year. So that means that it used to be closer. How many can figure this out with no help? Okay, you with me now? Okay, good. Well, if you bring the moon back in closer, you start to create a problem, you see, because the moon causes the tides. It pulls the water up. Well, if the moon was closer, there's a law called the inverse square law. If you take it into 1/2 the distance, you take that 1/2, inverse it, and square it, it's 4 times the gravitational pull. What that means is a little over 1 billion years ago, the moon was whizzing around just above the surface of the earth. And here they are telling us the earth is 4.6 billion years old? I don't think so. That's just not scientifically possible. On one of my videos, we cover about an hour's worth of reasons why the earth cannot be billions of years old. It just can't be for all sorts of scientific reasons. Now, I think they're also wrong about dinosaurs. I like dinosaurs. My website is Dr. Dino. Our phone number is 479-DINO. I have dinosaurs on my tie. We like dinosaurs, okay? I think they're wrong today about dinosaurs. This guy in National Geographic says, no human being has ever seen a live dinosaur. Well, now, hold on just a minute. Does he know that, or does he think that? He thinks that. There's no way he could know that unless he talked to everybody that ever lived, right? Did he talk to you before he wrote that article? Do you think he talked to Adam and Eve? No. You can't say nobody's ever seen one. He doesn't know that. He thinks that. But it just could be that he thinks wrong. Let's talk about dinosaurs here. Oh, hands up, back down, okay? In California, 1925, this thing washed up on the beach. It was dead. People came and looked at it and said, what on earth is that? You can see the nose and the front, the head. There's his eyeball right there. Here's his neck coming down this way. The guy behind him's got a rifle just in case it moves again. People came and looked at that thing and said, wow, that's a plesiosaurus. The neck was 20 feet long. One atheist wrote me a letter one time and said, Hovind, you're so stupid. Don't you know that was a whale? I said, just exactly where is the neck on a whale? Where is the neck on a whale? The people who looked at it said it's a plesiosaurus. Now the question would be, how could a plesiosaur wash up on the beach in California in 1925 when the books are telling us they died 70 million years ago? I think somebody is wrong about something, someplace. And we're going to try to examine this today. Everybody that saw it said it was a plesiosaurus. I like dinosaurs. We have Dinosaur Adventureland in my backyard in Pensacola, Florida. You come on down and pay us a visit there in Pensacola. We have about 10,000 visitors in 2002 came. All kinds of people come to visit us at Dinosaur Adventureland. We have all kinds of rides and activities and swings and really cool stuff. We teach the kids the scientific way to shoot a rubber band, the scientific way to make a paper airplane, not this kind, but we have another kind that goes 400 feet. Completely over your gymnasium, absolutely no problem. We have lots of activities for the kids. We make model dinosaurs, and there's lots of stuff to do. We don't have time today to cover that because I know you guys are anxious to get back to class. No? Okay. Anyway, you can come down and pay us a visit there. We have lots of dinosaurs. We have a T-Rex head sticking out of the building. Loves to eat kids that are in 4th grade. Loves them. Kids get a Dinosaur Adventureland license. Every activity that we do there has a science lesson and a spiritual lesson. We try to teach kids things that will last them for a lifetime. You can get dinosaur hunting and dinosaur, oh man, lots of cool stuff. If you break a record, you get your name on our website, dinosauradventureland.com, and you get a $5 gift certificate with a famous president on it. That's not me. That's a picture of me. Okay, this is me. Anyway, you can go fossil hunting, where you can dig for fossils. You can try our Congo Trail, where you got to go through the spider web and over the obstacle course and through the cave, carrying a water balloon the whole time. Very difficult to do. You can see our mad scientists, Dr. Kaboom and Dr. Kabang, do science experiments where they blow things up and burn things down, and they have a wonderful time. You can try our climbing wall. Oh, that's a tough one, to see if you can make it all the way to the end of the climbing wall. And that is really hard. You can learn all sorts of interesting lessons there. And you can try our giant swing, our leap of faith off the tower. Here's a kid about to try the leap of faith. You put the kid up there. The tower's about 16 feet tall. You climb up there and you sit in the seat and you hang onto the handles and you take off. Here he goes. Oh, here we go. We're going to put this kid. This kid's 4 years old. We have 3-year-olds do it all the time. And you drop them off. Now that's a swing. If you do hit the tree, it does not hurt the tree. Well, yeah, that's true. Yeah. But it feels better when it quits hurting. Yeah. You can line up and try our leap of faith. The kids jump, they love that. The first time it is absolutely terrifying, and then you're going to want to do it all day long. But you can only do it 300 times per day, no more. Come back the next day and do it again if you'd like. There. You can try our climbing wall, see if you can make it all the way across to the dinosaur and ring the bell. We have all kinds of things to learn. Fossils you can handle, a regular museum. All kinds of stuff on dinosaurs. You can try the swamp swing where you try to get across. We have a self-propelled merry-go-round. You turn the wheel in the middle, but it doesn't move. Instead, you do. And you go round, round, round until you puke, and then you get off, okay? You can try the nerve-wracking ball. We have a 16-pound bowling ball. We put it next to your nose and drop it, and when it swings out and comes back, you can't blink or move to get your card punched. Very scary. You can try our circle swivel spring swingosaurus. I made this one up myself in the middle of the night. I learned if you eat a whole bunch of pizza before you go to bed, at 2 in the morning you get really cool ideas. They're called nightmares. And it swings and circles and swivels and does all sorts of cool things. You can play basketball on the trampoline. If you want to play basketball on a trampoline, that's a lot of fun. There's our circle swivel spring swing. We have a merry-go-round that not only goes around, it swings. A swinging merry-go-round. Pretty cool. And you can try to learn about centrifugal force on our flingosaurus. We can make dinosaur targets out there, and you go hunting with water balloons. Try to launch water balloons and hit the dinosaurs. You can measure how many horsepower you have with our horsepower demonstration. You hook into the swing and the swing set seat there, and you pull and see how fast you can pull up 15 or 30 or 55 pounds to measure your horsepower. Pretty cool. We like science around our place. Then we make our super airplanes that go 400 feet. The kids really, really like those. We'll teach you how to make one if you come down and visit us. We like dinosaurs. But there's one thing about dinosaurs I do not like. And I'm going to tell you about that in just a minute. Okay? This one is the Apatosaurus. You can pat him, but he will bite. I like the Apatosaurus, but there's one thing about him I do not like. And I'm going to tell you about that in just a minute. This one is the Brachiosaur. Now, the Brachiosaur is different from the Apatosaur. His back legs are longer than his front legs, and his front legs are longer than his back legs. This one's jacked up in the front, this one's jacked up in the back. This one probably got better gas mileage, and this one had more horsepower. Okay, I don't know why, but there's different models made that year. Anyway, the Brachiosaurus had pretty big toe bones. This is a toe bone from a Brachiosaur. If you feel your finger, you got 3 bones in your finger. It's the second one back from a brachiosaurus. Now, kids, this is going to be complicated, so listen carefully. The reason he had such big toe bones is because he had big toes. How many can figure this out with no help? Okay? Now, he had those big toes because he had a big foot. There's a kid taking a bath in a brachiosaur footprint. And he had that big foot because he had a big leg to hold up. His front leg was up to the ceiling in here. That's just to the top of his front leg. His neck goes on up from there. The biggest one they ever found is found in Oklahoma. It is 60 feet to the top of the head. They say it probably weighed about 100 tons, which is equal to 14 school buses put together. That means if he was to come by and step on you, you would be deeply impressed by him. You would be road pizza. I like brachiosaurs. Oh, beep, hands up, back down. Okay. But there's one thing about the brachiosaur I do not like. And I'm going to tell you about that in just a minute, okay? This one is the stegosaurus. Now, the stegosaurus is a very rare dinosaur. Only about 5 or 6 have ever been found. If you found stegosaur bones, you would be rich. They had plates on their back, and I have with me today a copy, a replica, of one of the small plates. This is one of the little plates down by his tail. The big ones were bigger than the small ones. I like the stegosaurus. He had spikes on his tail. We've got a copy of a tail spike in our museum down there in Pensacola, if you come see it. Big old spikes on his tail. Even though his body was about 20 feet long, his brain was the size of a ping pong ball. Not too smart. I like the stegosaur, but there's one thing about him I do not like. And I'm going to tell you about that in just a minute, okay? This one is the Tyrannosaurus Rex. Unless he lives south of the Rio, then he is Tyrannosaurus Mex. He had a pretty good sized head, almost the size of a Volkswagen. This is a replica of one of his teeth. And he had big toenails. Now, his front fingernails were a little smaller than this, but they looked about the same, which means he had to be very careful when he picked his nose. If you bump him in the elbow while he's picking his nose, he'll be mad at you for 2 weeks. I like the Triceratops. I like the T-Rex, but there's one thing about him I do not like. And I'll tell you about that in just a minute. This is the plesiosaur. The plesiosaur had 4 flippers and a very long neck, up to 20 feet long. And when he gets a sore throat, it's a very serious problem. I like the plesiosaur, but there's one thing about him I do not like. And I'll tell you about that in just a minute, okay? This one is the Styracosaurus. Now, kids, I've been studying dinosaurs for a long time. I cannot prove this, but I think this is probably the dinosaur that invented hairspray. I like Styracosaurus, but there's one thing about him I do not like. And I'll tell you about that in just a minute, okay? This is my Blondosaurus. And here is the Triceratops. Now, Triceratops had 3 horns on his face. We have in our museum a copy of a baby Triceratops horn. The biggest Triceratops horn was about 6 feet long. Pretty big. I like the Triceratops, but there's one thing about him I do not like. I'll tell you about that in just a minute. This one is the Parasaurolophus. He's having a bad hair day. I like the Parasaurolophus, but there's one thing about him I do not like. And I'll tell you about that in just a minute. And this one is Barney the Dumbosaurus. Beep. All right. I like all the dinosaurs, but there's one thing about all the dinosaurs I just can't stand. And I'm going to tell you about that right now. The one thing about all the dinosaurs that makes me so angry, every time you go to the library and check out a book about dinosaurs, you open up to the first page, and it says, millions of years ago. Now just hold on a minute. Do they know that, or do they think that? They think that. I don't think there's any way they can know that. Whenever somebody says to me, millions of years ago, I just say, excuse me, were you there? No, they weren't there. But all the books are going to tell you dinosaurs lived millions of years ago. I just don't think that's a scientific fact. That might be somebody's theory. It might be somebody's wild idea. But I think there's a much better theory to explain the dinosaurs. Now, here's the way science works. I'm going to give you my theory, and then you're supposed to try to prove it's wrong. Anybody can make up a theory, and then other scientists try to prove it's wrong. Okay, fair enough? I'm going to present my theory about dinosaurs, and then you can, after we're done here, say, Mr. Hovind, I think you're wrong because of, and you give me your scientific evidence why I'm wrong. Fair enough? Here goes my theory. Now pay attention. I believe the world was created in 6 days about 6,000 years ago. I don't think it's millions of years old. And then I think 4,400 years ago there was a giant flood that completely destroyed the world. A guy named Noah built a big boat and saved all the critters on board. Now, before that flood came, things were very different. From the creation up until the flood, people lived to be really, really old, like over 900 years old. Adam was 930 when he died. Now, during this time, when people are living to be really, really old, strange things would happen to the reptiles, because reptiles never stop growing. You know, reptiles grow all their life. They never stop. You're going to stop growing. When you're 16 or 18, you're going to quit growing, at least vertically. Reptiles never stop growing. Now tell me, what would happen to a reptile if you let him live in the Garden of Eden and live to be 900 years old? Get really big. I think dinosaurs did not live millions of years ago. I think they were big lizards that lived in the Garden of Eden with Adam and Eve. Big lizards. And then, to top it off, I think Noah took dinosaurs on the ark. You say, oh, come on now, just hold on a minute. I'm going to give you my theory, and then you're going to try to prove I'm wrong. Here's my theory. I think he took dinosaurs on the ark. You say, come on, dinosaurs are kind of big, aren't they? Well, the big ones were big, but the little ones were little. And Noah was 600 years old when he went on that boat. I bet he was smart enough to figure out you don't have to bring the biggest ones you can find. You bring 2 babies. Just be sure to get a pink one and a blue one. That'll be important later, okay? There's all kinds of reasons for bringing babies on the ark. That's just common sense, okay? We cover that on our video number 3. And then, after that flood was over, the world changed quite a bit. People didn't live to be 900 anymore. They only lived to be 400 years old, and then down to 200, and then down to 100. And today, hardly anybody makes it to 100. Actually, lifespans of people got real short back just 1,000 years ago, called the Dark Ages. I mean, they were only living to be 30, 40, 50 years old, and they died, most of them. Some lived to be 100 still, but generally, lifespans were pretty short. And now they've improved in the last, few centuries. That's because of better medicine, better diet, stuff like that. Not at all because of evolution. We're just, better nutrition. So I think they were living 900 years before the flood, and then it dropped off to 400, and then 200, and then 100, and, not many make it to 100 today, but a few do. And this, of course, affected the reptiles. The dinosaurs that got off the ark faced a whole different world. They simply couldn't live to be 900 anymore, so they couldn't get as big. They actually had 2 problems. People were killing them. They called them dragons. Let me just tell you my theory, and then you prove I'm wrong, okay? I don't think they were called dinosaurs because the word dinosaur wasn't even made up till 1841. How could they call them a name that didn't exist? They called them dragons. And all through history, there are thousands of stories of people killing dragons. Lots of stories of people killing dragons. And as the population of people began to grow after the flood, the population of dragons began to go down because nobody wants to live next door to a dragon. Same thing happened right here in this county. How many grizzly bears are roaming loose in the woods right now in this county? 0. How many were there 500 years ago? Probably thousands of them, right? Well, what happened? Well, you see, folks, when people move into an area and civilize it, the big ferocious animals are driven off or killed off. Nobody wants to live next door to a grizzly bear. The same thing happened to the dragons. Hey, if it came on the evening news tonight that there were 5 grizzly bears roaming around the woods in this county, do you know what would happen by 6 o'clock in the morning? Every redneck in 4 states would be out there with a rifle trying to shoot them. And whoever could shoot the biggest one would be a hero. They'd have his picture in the paper. Hey, Bubba shot the grizzly bear and saved the village. That's exactly what would happen. And I think that's what happened to the dinosaurs. I think people killed most of them. They called them dragons. I'm just giving you my theory now, and then you're going to prove I'm wrong, okay? They called them dragons. Do you know there are dinosaurs and dragons found on ancient pottery and ancient artwork? There's an old brick wall from Babylon, shows dragons on it, from 600 BC. That brick wall was built way back here, 600 years before Christ. How did they know about dragons in 600 BC? Alexander the Great conquered part of India in 300 BC, and he said his soldiers were scared by dragons when they conquered some of the cities. This Roman mosaic was made 200 years after Christ, and it shows long-necked dinosaurs on it. Now here they are telling us nobody's ever seen one. Well, explain these. Gilgamesh is famous for slaying a dragon. St. George is famous for slaying a dragon. Beowulf slew dragons, 2 of them, and then the 3rd one killed him. Tried to kill a 3rd dragon, and he killed the dragon, and the dragon killed him. They both died from the injuries from the fight. You ought to try to read the Beowulf story in Old English. Good luck. That's English from 1,500 years ago. When they translate the story to modern English, the story says, Beowulf killed Grendel the dragon by pulling off one of its arms, and the creature bled to death. Strange story. So, to me, the way I look at this, I don't see a problem. I think probably he really did kill a dragon. I think there were a few small dinosaurs still alive in 500 AD when Beowulf lived. Actually, I think they've lived all through history. If you look around, there are dragon stories from countries all over the world. Ancient pottery sometimes shows dinosaurs on it. How did they know to put those on there? Here's a piece of pottery from the first dynasty of Egypt, showing 2 long-necked dinosaurs. This guy says nobody's ever seen one. Does he know that, or does he think that? He thinks that. And I think that he thinks wrong. Here's another one showing 2 long-necked dinosaurs holding a sheep between their mouths. Well, all you got to do is look around and you start seeing dragon legends all over the place. Now, maybe some of them are, made up or stretched a little bit, but hey, they must have something to it. Here's a Russian medallion with a guy killing a dragon. Bulgarian postage stamp here shows a man killing a dragon. An Irish writer said they killed a dragon with iron nails on its tail. Stegosaurus certainly had like iron nails on his tail. The Vikings have legends of people killing dragons. They called him the Kraken, the great dragon of the sea. The famous Norwegian hero Siegfried slew the dragon Fafnir about 1,000 years ago. Marco Polo went to China and lived there for 17 years. When he came back, he told everybody the emperor in China is raising dragons to pull his chariots in parades. Well, now, hold on a minute. Why would he say something like that? I have a theory about that. I think he said that because the emperor was raising dragons to pull chariots in his parades. I think there were still a few alive in 1200 AD when Marco Polo went to China. There probably weren't very many, and they probably were getting pretty small by now, but I think there were a few still around. Then, dinosaurs have always lived with man. In Italy, just 400 years ago, a man killed a small dinosaur that was bothering his cows. He smacked it on the head with his, broke its neck. They had it stuffed and mounted for a museum display, probably a Tanystropheus from the description. We could go all day on dinosaurs, but I know you guys are anxious to get back to class. Did you know, when they first went down through the Grand Canyon, they found carvings of dinosaurs on the walls of the Grand Canyon? The Indians hunted dinosaurs and carved their pictures on the walls. Here they are telling us nobody's ever seen one. Well, how did they know to carve their pictures on the walls of the Grand Canyon? There's a painting in Australia of a native running away from a dinosaur. Nobody's ever seen one? He doesn't know that. He thinks that. Down in Peru, they've got the driest desert in the world. They found some stones down there with dinosaurs and people together carved on them. These stones were made over 2,000 years ago. I've got 3 of them in my museum in Pensacola. They're called the Ica stones, the Nazca burial stones from Ica, Peru. Interesting. Now, how did they know to carve dinosaurs on these stones when they were made about the time of Christ? And the word dinosaur wasn't made up till 1841, and dinosaur bones weren't found and put together for museums till the early 1800s. and yet these guys 2,000 years ago knew about them. Not only that, they often showed circles on the sides of the dinosaurs. You know, when you find dinosaur bones, that doesn't tell you what the skin looked like. Did you know fossilized dinosaur skin was found about 10 years ago, and it had circles on the side? They must have seen a live one to know to put those on there. I think we've been told something that's just not true, folks. We've been told dinosaurs lived millions of years ago. I don't believe that for a second. Here's one from my museum. See the circles on the side of the dinosaur? The dinosaur is holding the guy by the head. Here's one where the guy cut the dinosaur's head off with a knife. You know, there are many legends of people seeing dinosaurs just in the last few hundred years. We've been told they lived millions of years ago. I don't think so. I think they always lived with man. And believe it or not, there could be a few still alive today. You know, they found an old Indian burial mound in Peru. Inside the tomb was a pot made with, pottery with a dinosaur on it. The mummy was wrapped up in a blanket, and all around the blanket were dinosaurs. They knew about dinosaurs 2,000 years ago, folks. Now, they're telling us nobody's ever seen one, but he doesn't know that. He thinks that. And according to my theory, this guy is wrong. The Roman sword was found with a dinosaur on it. The Romans knew about dinosaurs. During the age of sailing ships, there are many legends of people sighting sea monsters. They called them sea monsters, and you can read lots of books in the library about that. And some people say, well, they're just making up a story. It could be. Some of them probably are just made up. But when you get thousands of stories of sea monsters, maybe there is something to it. Beep, hands up, down. Okay. Dinosaurs are mentioned all through history. One of the oldest books in the world is called the Book of Job, J-O-B. The Book of Job mentions an animal called behemoth. Now, what is a behemoth? Well, some people think it might be an elephant or hippopotamus. I don't think that's possible. I think behemoth is this one right here, the Brachiosaurus. And let me tell you my reasons why. It says he eats grass like an ox. Well, a lot of animals eat grass, right? That could be an elephant or hippopotamus. They eat grass too. It says his tail is like a cedar tree. Oh, now, hold on a minute. Have you ever seen an elephant's tail? Not like a cedar tree, no. Okay. How about a hippo tail? Not like a cedar tree, no. Anyway, it says his bones are as strong pieces of brass. His bones are like bars of iron. He had big bones. I would say the brachiosaur had big bones. It says his strength is in his loins. His force is in the navel of his belly. The strongest part on him is his belly. Some people say, oh, hey, elephants have a big belly. Yep. Hippopotamus have a big belly. Brachiosaurus has a big belly. He has a big belly. So does he. The Book of Job tells us he lies under the shady trees in the covert of the reed and fens. Now, the word fens is an Old English word that means the swamp. So this animal, behemoth, whatever it is, lives in the swamp. Well, the biggest swamp in the world happens to be in the middle of Africa. That swamp is gigantic. There's what it looks like next to the entire United States. That swamp is huge, bigger than the entire state of Mississippi. Same size as Florida, 55,000 square miles. Did you know there have been reports out of that swamp in the last 100 years of dinosaurs still living? In 1910, some scientists were in that swamp and said, hey, they called it a brontosaurus back then, still alive. They found out later they got the wrong name for it. In 1948, Saturday Evening Post, some scientists went in there and said, there are dinosaurs still alive in that swamp. In 1980, some scientists from University of Chicago went there, and the natives kept talking about an animal they called Mokele mbembe. And he said, what is a Mokele mbembe? And they drew a picture of that right there. And the scientists said, fellas, that's a dinosaur. They've been dead for 70 million years. And the natives said, well, we're sorry. We didn't know about that. All we know is we see them out there once in a while when we're fishing. So they'd never been to school to get taught that dinosaurs lived millions of years ago. All they knew is, hey, we see them once in a while, okay? Now, they're not very big. They're only about 20 feet long, and they're long neck and long tail. Their body's about the size of a hippo, is what the natives say, but they have a very long neck. And they're vegetarian. They won't eat you, but they will kill you. They don't like anybody coming near their territory. Lots of folks have gone in there and claimed that they saw this creature called Mokele mbembe. Now, here we are being taught that they lived millions of years ago. A missionary friend of mine was over there for 42 years in the swamp. He said he had 2 pygmies in his church that helped kill one and eat it. There's his phone number there. If you don't believe me, call him up. He's back in Ohio now. Another missionary was there in Kenya. He said, oh yeah, my wife and I saw one with plates on its back, sort of like a stegosaur, but longer and skinnier, with plates on its back. Huh. There's a great big lake in Scotland called Loch Ness. Has anybody ever heard of Loch Ness before? Okay. Did you know 11,000 people swear they have seen the Loch Ness monster, and they call it a plesiosaur? Now, it could be they're all lying. But if 11,000 people claim they've seen something, maybe they have seen something. Why would they all claim they saw a plesiosaur? One family said they saw it with a sheep in its mouth. Reader's Digest here shows a picture of Nessie with its mouth open. Lots of folks claim they've seen this. One guy almost ran into it one night on his motorcycle. He said it was scooting across the road in front of his motorcycle. This guy's a veterinarian student. Scared him half to death. That's a sketch he drew of it right there. One guy got a picture of a diamond-shaped flipper underwater. Nessie apparently has diamond-shaped flippers. Beep. You know, they've been seen all over the world. In 1977, the Japanese fishing boat was dragging their net down by New Zealand, and they snagged something heavy, and when they pulled it up, it was a 32-foot long, 4,000-pound, dead, rotten, stinking carcass of something. It had a long neck and 4 big flippers. They looked at it and said, fellas, I don't know what that is, but that's a strange thing. They also said, it stinks real bad, and we're throwing it back. But they made a special stamp for Japanese mail. They said they had a plesiosaurus in their net. 1977. Now, wait a minute. When I went to school, they told me dinosaurs lived millions of years ago. I don't think so. Something like a dinosaur washed up on the beach in Russia, 1994. It was 39 feet long. Something's been seen in China and in Japan. I mean, I could go on all day about dinosaurs living with people. There's a lake in Canada called Lake Okanagan, where many folks swear they have seen the Ogopogo. That's their nickname for it. Thousands of people will say, oh yeah, I've seen the Ogopogo. There's one called the Cadborosaurus in British Columbia. There's a lake between New York and Vermont called Lake Champlain. Lots of folks claim they've seen the Lake Champlain monster. I talked to the lady that took that picture. I went and met with her, videotaped the interview. I said, Sandy, do you think you saw a dinosaur? She said, no. I know I saw a dinosaur. She and her husband and 2 kids watched it for 10 minutes. When I showed her this one, I said, did it look like that? She said, no. Well, yes, it looked like that, but the neck was shorter. That's what she told me. Now, they're telling us nobody's ever seen one. This thing washed up on the beach in Lake Erie. Nobody even today knows what it is. It's in a museum in Texas. A lot of folks claim they've seen the Lake Erie monster, whatever it is. There could be a few pterodactyls still alive. I've interviewed about 9 people now who claim they've seen one. Small, 6-foot wingspan, 4-foot wingspan. I mentioned in my seminar tape about pterodactyls being seen in Kenya, Africa. The natives over there call it Batamzinga. That's their name for it. And I got a phone call one day, and this guy said, Mr. Hovind, I'm visiting here from Kenya. I'm going to school at Louisiana State University, Baton Rouge. He said, I'm on the Kenya Olympic running team, and I'm going to school in America. He said, I saw your tape about pterodactyls still living. He said, I live in Kenya, and I want you to know, you're right, we have those creatures over there. He said, nobody likes them because they come out at night, and they'd love to eat dead, rotten meat, and especially, you know, if somebody dies and you don't bury them very deep, they'll dig up somebody that died and eat them. He said their wingspan's only about 4 feet, you know, 5 feet, but he said they're over there. I mentioned about pterodactyls being seen in Indonesia. I was speaking at a college one time, and this lady raised her hand. She said, Mr. Hovind, I'm from Indonesia. I'm a medical doctor. I came to America to study English. And she said, I grew up and lived in Indonesia all my life. And she said, you are right. We have those creatures in Indonesia. They call it orangbatai. It's their name for it. She said, why do you teach people over here that they lived millions of years ago? I said, I don't know, because we're dumb, I guess. They did not live millions of years ago. Anyway, the Thunderbird legend is the story of a tribe of Indians that saw this bird, giant bird, get hit by lightning. So they called it the Thunderbird. When it fell to the ground, they found it 3 days later. The buzzards had picked all the meat off the bones, but the wingspan was 20 feet and had a bump on the back of its head. Indian prayer sticks show a pterodactyl head. Now, Henry Ford put an eagle on the taillight of a Thunderbird. Should have been a pterodactyl. You blew that one, Henry. Oh, beep, stand up. Oh, no, there we go. Okay. So the one thing about dinosaurs I don't like. Every time you get a book about dinosaurs, it says millions of years ago. So my theory is very simple. The world was created in 6 days, about 6,000 years ago. There was a great big flood that completely wrecked everything 4,400 years ago. Before the flood, everything lived longer and grew much bigger. After the flood, things changed. Dinosaurs were called dragons. Through history, they were called dragons. People killed most of them. There could be a few still alive today. No big deal. I don't think there's very many, and I don't think they're very big, but there probably are some still around today. Now, as a scientist, your job is to look at the theory and say, you know, maybe that's right. The problem is some people are afraid to say anything against what everybody else believes. Because everybody else believes dinosaurs lived millions of years ago, and they go, oh, I don't want to say anything else because then they're going to make fun of me. I don't think it's possible that they lived millions of years ago. So, that's my theory. Your job is to prove I'm wrong. If you're a scientist, you want to be a scientist? Okay, say, Mr. Hovind, I think you're wrong because... I'd like to hear why. I've been studying this for a long time, folks. I think I got the right theory. I think we've been told something that's not true. I was taught all through school. Man used to have a tail, but he lost it because he didn't need it. I thought, didn't need it? Have you ever thought how handy a tail would be? Did you ever come to the door with 2 sacks of groceries? Man, you can grab that door and open it right up and walk right in. Lost it because we didn't need it. Come on. That's a bunch of baloney. Anyway, you teachers, if you'd like to I have all kinds of videos on creation, evolution, and dinosaurs. You can get a catalog only for the teachers, please. I've only just got a few left. And I told you I'd show you the scientific way to shoot an airplane, shoot a rubber band, right? Now, you sure you want to learn this? Okay. I want you to notice my fingers do not leave my hand at any time. That's important. Okay. What most people do wrong with rubber band shooting is they stretch both sides the same. See, one side is your flesh, the other one is your spirit. Your spirit has to live in your flesh or else you're dead. Okay? If you pull both sides the same, when it flies through the air, if you could watch it in slow motion, the sides are going... They're fighting with each other all the way. So, the secret to high-speed velocity through a fluid medium, such as the atmosphere, is to minimize the turbulence. All I did was stretch one side tighter than the other. One side's tight. When I let go, it's going to spin through the air. The spirit leads the flesh. All the way to the back of the gem.
Do you want to know more about how to combat the godless theory of evolution? Creation Science Evangelism offers 4 great tools that help strengthen the faith of believers and win the lost to Christ. After 15 years of teaching high school science, Dr. Hovind began Creation Science Evangelism in 1989. We are a ministry that is dedicated to providing tools which will help you combat the evolution philosophy that is destroying the faith of millions every year. The first tool Creation Science offers is their powerful, life-changing video series. Over the last 12 years, well over 1 million videotapes of Dr. Hovind's seminar have circled the globe. They are reaping a harvest of souls for the kingdom of Christ, as well as helping restore the faith of many thousands confused by the evolution propaganda to which they've been subjected. These videos are available in English, Russian, French, Spanish, Japanese, and sign language. The Age of the Earth, first of the 7-part series, teaches that God created the universe about 6,000 years ago in 6 literal days. Could this be true? Can it be scientifically proven that the Earth is not billions of years old? This tape gives solid scientific evidence that the Earth is young and that the Bible is scientifically accurate. How did the environment of the original creation differ from ours today? And how would this allow men to live over 900 years? Can Christians have a good explanation for the existence of dinosaurs? Could some dinosaurs still be alive today? These and many more questions are covered in the 2nd and 3rd part of the series. Evolution has permeated public school textbooks with false and fraudulent information. This video exposes nearly 30 lies commonly found in textbooks. Every public school student, teacher, and school board member needs to watch part 4 of this series. Find out if you have been lied to in your textbooks. Discover the terrible difference evolutionary beliefs have made in the past as well as in recent history in our video number 5. Dictators throughout time have used their evolution-based philosophies to rationalize their brutal actions. Learn how evolution propaganda is being used today to prepare people for the New World Order. This is just a taste of all the information the 17-hour seminar series has to offer. Also available are college courses that expand on the seminars in great detail. For those who can handle a more confrontational atmosphere, our debate series is just for you.
I said, now, Mr. Patterson, if you think the tailbone is vestigial, I, Kent Hovind, will pay to have yours removed.
Dr. Hovind has debated a wide range of atheists and evolutionists all over the country. You're sure to find these 12 debates very exciting. These would be perfect to present to that scientifically minded person who likes to argue their point. Our topical series includes exciting topics like why evolution is stupid, public school presentation, children's video about dinosaurs, the Bible and health, Leviathan, the fire-breathing dragon, and many more. Creation Science also offers a variety of visuals, like the longevity chart, which presents the entire lineage of Adam to Joseph as given in Genesis. It's exciting to see exactly how many generations were alive at the same time. Hundreds of books on a variety of subjects, videos on incredible creatures that defy evolution, t-shirts, fossils, and more. Make Creation Science Evangelism the one-stop shopping center for your creation material needs. Our 2 websites, www.drdino.com and www.dinosauradventureland.com, provide our second tool for evangelism. drdino.com is packed with lots of information, from charts and graphs to articles and frequently asked questions. This is also where you will find more information on all of the products CSE has to offer. DinosauradventureLand.com is great for the kids. They can play lots of fun games and see unusual rides and activities located at Dinosaur Adventureland in Pensacola, Florida. Thousands visit our sites regularly to gain insight into God's creation. The third tool available to you is the live seminars conducted by Dr. Hovind and his son Eric. Since 1989, Dr. Hovind has held seminars and debates in hundreds of churches, schools, and universities in 49 states and 30 foreign countries. His fast-paced, illustrated seminars cover diverse topics, such as evidence for a young Earth, how long Adam lived, dinosaurs living with man, where races came from, radiometric dating, and much more. Our 4th tool is the new, exciting Dinosaur Adventureland. Many thousands have come from all across America to visit our museum, creation bookstore, science center, and theme park. where God gets the glory for science. Our unusual swings, rides, and activities each have a science lesson as well as a spiritual lesson. Captivate everyone from age 4 to 94. To order material, find out how to schedule a seminar at your church, or get more information about Dinosaur Adventureland, write to us at Creation Science Evangelism, 29 Cummings Road, Pensacola, Florida, 32503, or call us at 850-479-3466, or toll free in the U.S. 877-479-3466.